Well, hello and welcome to the Celebration Machine. I'm your host, Pete Hammond. If this is your first time here, thank you for being here. And if you're a returning visitor, subscriber, thanks again for coming back. I do appreciate your viewership. Tonight's video is just a few things that I learned while working in the cemetery. First of all, I never went to university. I have a bit of college, but I don't have, beyond that, the education. But I've had an incredibly rich education in life. I've been a student of life my whole life. I've always looked at everything as a lesson. I was always an inquisitive person, and I'm naturally curious. And working at the cemetery was probably one of the most powerful places I've ever worked in my entire life. I've done some crazy stuff. I'm a commercial building operator right now. I've been a musician, a working artist, a doorman. My God, I've had lots of jobs: trauma scene cleanup, demolition, abatement work, lots of nasty stuff. And I also do funerals as a funeral officiant. But working at the cemetery as a young man really set me up for having a solid base to go through life and have a platform that I could always kind of stand on when things got crazy. And what I mean by that is, first of all, I got the job at the cemetery right after finishing cancer treatment. So I finished cancer treatment successfully, because obviously I'm still here. And I got a job on the burial crew at a cemetery. And it was incredible. I loved it. I know that sounds weird, but it was the most powerful place I could be to really process what I just experienced. Because I don't know, for all you people maybe watching this that have had cancer or gone through something that's, tough and traumatic, a lot of times the healing only starts, like you're in survival mode while you're going through it. But then the healing sort of happens when you're out of the actual experience, when you're done the physical treatment and it's behind you. And consequently, it's weird because that's when people tend to kind of back off. Personally, I told people I didn't want anyone around when I was doing treatment. I drove myself there. I didn't want my family involved because I couldn't handle all the emotion I was feeling from people. I've always been a sensitive person, and I just felt gobs of emotion, as your family would, show you love, hopefully. If not, that sucks. But anyway, I got the job at the cemetery and I was on burial crew, which meant I worked alone a lot. So I had a tractor and a dump trailer and a tamper, and my job would be to help the main burial crew tear down the burial site. We'd lower the casket down, sometimes with people around during the service, or most oftentimes it would be when everyone left. Then we show up, we lower the casket down, pull the straps off, take away all the gear, the lowering device, all the green carpets, all that stuff, the flowers, move everything out of the way. And then I come in, dump a bunch of dirt, tamp it all down, and then do sod. So that was my job. Then put a stake, and then, watering guy would go down and water it. But it was, for me, the absolute perfect job to do post-cancer treatment. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I was alone. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to have to explain. I was going through a lot of emotional shit, mostly after treatment, because I kind of held it all in and was really trying to be stoic throughout the whole thing and protect other people from heavy emotional stuff that I was feeling, but also just to keep an even keel, to the point where I wouldn't even really allow myself to think about dying while I was actively in cancer treatment, surrounded by all kinds of death and sick people. But for me, it was about keeping my mind just on the goal and on the prize, so to speak, which was just make it through this treatment. So when I did finish it, well, first of all, my last day was nuts. I finished the treatment, walked into the corner after they unhooked me from the radiation machine. They make this plastic mold that holds you in place so that the radiation always hits in the same spot. But anyway, got out of the machine, walked through the corner, and just lost my mind, crying. I had emotions I can't describe even to this day. It was incredible. It was like, I'm sure, winning the lottery times 1,000. The visceral nature of it, it was crazy. It's basically a high I've been chasing my whole life. I've never felt anything like that again. And maybe if you're a cancer survivor or someone that's had that kind of feeling, maybe you can in the comments tell me if that's something you've experienced, because it's a high that's, to me, I guess I would compare it to if you walked on the moon, if they did walk on the moon. But anyway, incredibly powerful experience that I've been chasing my whole life. Never had anything remotely close to that. But once I was finished treatment, I got this job and I was on the burial crew and I was alone. So I had time to process what I'd gone through. And of course, when you're in a cemetery, you're thinking about death and dying because you're in a cemetery. And my job was literally burying people, everything from little infants, tiny caskets, to all kinds of adults. Back in the day, I don't think it's as popular now, casket burials, but when this would have been the mid-90s, there certainly was a lot of casket burials and interments with urns and stuff, but I seem to remember doing a lot of caskets, which you don't see as much these days. At least I don't as a funeral officiant. It's mostly cremations. A, because it's expensive as hell, and B, I just think people are going that way because it's not as intense. But anyways, you can decide. So number one, I was alone and I had time to process. I always had a notepad with me, a little pad, and I would make notes because I was thinking about stuff as I was working. It was great to be physically in my body because a lot of times when you're in a heavy emotional experience, you can tend to sort of almost disassociate from the body. At least I did. And I always felt my spirit or a part of my consciousness sort of pulling away from my body to the point where, especially when I was having these crazy rolling panic attacks and anxiety attacks, I'd be like up and to the right, almost watching myself like an out-of-body experience. The anxiety was so bad. So it was good to be physically in my body, to have sore muscles, to dig and work and sweat and sort of re-inhabit my body from a conscious aspect. So that was great. Number two, I had time to think. I don't know about you, but thinking when you're just sitting is not the best. When you're actively doing something like working or working out or going for a walk, when your body is in motion, I find that's when a lot of good shit happens. You know, a lot of good thoughts can come, at least when you're busy. I know when I'm in the shop, I make metal art. I was in the shop today working, and once my hands get busy, once I get into something, I find my mind can just kind of let go. It's almost like a meditation of sorts. But that's what was happening when I was in the cemetery, when I was doing the burials, is I get into my routine, and there's a routine to it, right? Like there's a series of steps you got to do. And as I was working, depending too on the person I was burying, because back in the day, we'd get the newspaper and stuff would happen in the community. And a lot of times we'd end up burying these people, whether it was car accidents or different sicknesses. And you'd read the obituaries. This is sounding really grim and dark, but anyway, it's a part of my life. You'd read the obituaries, and a lot of times you'd end up finding out a lot about the person that you were burying. So, in fact, one time I was feeling particularly down and upset and depressed and woe is me, and why did this have to happen to me? And I was just having a very low day, and that day I ended up burying a guy my age who had the same cancer that I just got through successfully. And he died from it. He didn't make it. And I was burying this guy. And I ended up having this very powerful moment because there was no one around after the funeral. I rolled up, we tore everything down, and then I was burying this guy. I talked to him, and I might have told the story before in the podcast, but even like over 30 years later, it still stays with me as one of the most powerful moments of my life because I felt like it was the perfect thing to be doing on a day when I felt like shit like that. And I ended up crying and just talking like the guy was sitting there with me. And I said, sorry you didn't make it through. It started to really allow me to have the space to unload. And I wasn't big on talking to people. Ironically, now I have a podcast. But, back then I didn't want to talk to people about my problems so much. I really was a work it out by myself kind of person. I just didn't want to have to deal with people's reactions, So to be able to bury that guy and just talk out loud and say, look, basically, I'm sorry that I'm having this shit day and I'm burying you, and I'm sorry it didn't work out, but hopefully you're out of that busted ass body and you're ripping through the cosmos and you're back to source, whatever, and you're not in pain anymore and all that shit that people say when people die. But that was powerful. And it also opened me up to all these different cultures and how they grieved and how they went through the process. And I was fascinated by that. I was super fascinated by how people treated their dead, how they treated each other. But I realized that overall, we're all human, and the price we pay for love is grief, right? And I've seen that lots of places, but it's the best thing to describe what happens when you lose somebody. Like if you're going to invest in love, it's going to hurt. And there's no way around that. And I don't think personally there's anything wrong with that. So to see people grieving their dead, it was powerful and it was sacred. You could feel it. Or at least I did. I never wanted to be callous. There's a lot of dark humor when you're working in a place like that. God love them. The boys were great. I had a great bunch of coworkers, and they were all nuts in their own way because you kind of have to be to do that day in and day out. But it sucks when you lose people you love, and it hurts. And there's no way around that. And I don't think there should be. I think it's important to feel it. I think it's important to go through the process of grief. I mean, if you can wrap your head around the fact that It's like your love has nowhere to go in that moment. I've also learned a lot being an older guy now and middle age and still dealing with a lot of people through funerals and stuff, and just realizing that the relationship changes, but it doesn't go away. Everyone I've ever lost, for lack of a better word, physically, when people die, I still talk to tons of them. And I don't, maybe I'm out of my goddamn mind, but I don't think so. In fact, sometimes it almost feels like the relationship is more pure or closer. There's a comfort there for me. Maybe you feel the same way. I don't know. So I learned a lot about different cultures and how they grieve, and consequently made me sort of a more respectful person, less narrow-minded, more open-minded, and I was grateful for that. I also realized that we all have the same size graves. You know what I mean? You can be a billionaire, and sure, I guess you could build a mausoleum and all this crazy shit, but for the most part, we all have the same size graves, which is very humbling, and it refocuses you when you think about that. But the biggest thing I took from that was we're all going to die. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I think that it's important. Interestingly enough, the more I worked around death and the more I was in that environment, the less afraid of it I became and the more alive I felt. I think that's self-explanatory. There's a certain feeling like when you allow yourself to be in that experience with an open mind and an open heart, and approach it as a student of life and approach it with respect and pay attention to the subtle feelings that you're having and the thoughts and the ideas that come through. If anything, it's made my heart bigger. It's made me a better human being. I'm able to handle death and crisis and all that stuff because I've spent a lifetime around it. But also I've got a reverence for it. I've got a respect for the process. I don't see death as, the marketing tool that it's been used as forever in Western society. I see it as a part of it's as natural as a sunrise or a sunset. It's going to happen to every single one of us. And if you're Buddhist, it's already happened to you. So it's going to happen again and again. To me, I always was obviously fascinated by it, but it really made me feel alive to be around it. And not like, haha, you're dead, I'm not. Just respectfully taking care of the dead because I wanted their families to come back and be greeted with a beautiful grave. I know that sounds weird, but the best compliment I ever got was my supervisor telling me, come up to me laughing because a family member from out of town couldn't find the grave. It had the perfect sod. It was beautiful. And it was like a week or two after, and it had knitted in so nicely that, they said, no one was buried there. So I was like, yeah, I did a good job. But anyway, being around death and thinking about death is incredibly healthy if you approach it in the right way. I still do funerals. It's the best thing for me to be of service. I get to help people when they're having the worst day of their lives. And I build a framework and an experience that they can sit in and enjoy it, for lack of a better word, to the best of their abilities, or at the very least be completely present in the moment. Because I think it's important, as fucked up as it is when people die, especially very close to you, your head can get spun really badly, especially if you're not used to it and you haven't had that experience. The first is the worst, but it can really throw you. But I implore you, especially if you're a young person, don't be afraid to think about it. Like, don't be afraid to sort of put yourself at your own funeral, because not only is it going to make today that much better if you're young and healthy, or no matter what age you are, if you're healthy, you're still here. It's kind of good to sort of practice, I want to live well, but I want to die even better, I know that's an insane thing to say, but I want to die well. I think that's something we don't really think about a lot and we don't get to practice. And then when it comes, it's like, oh my God, maybe it's overwhelming. And I want to be as present as possible. This day and age, you get drugged pretty hard, but the body knows how to die. That's been proven over and over again. And I think our spirits know what to do when it's time. But working in the cemetery was my PhD. It was my master's degree in life, and it consequently prepared me for life in a way that I could never, ever pay for in a school, I don't think. It's given me so many insights, some of them which I shared today. But man, I'm telling you, it's a powerful, powerful thing. So to wrap this video up, I implore you to spend a little bit of time thinking about death and dying. Not to be morbid, because, you can be morbid, but for me, it's a very healthy practice. And it's a Buddhist practice too, I believe. They meditate on it and everything. Some of them back in the day would lie with dead bodies. That's a little too hardcore for me. But just even going for a cruise and sitting in a cemetery and just realizing that, hey man, this is where we're all going. And all these people had hopes and dreams at one point and worries and fears just like you. The other side of that thing is when you realize, you know what, you're going to be dead. A lot of the stupid shit you worry about, the things you're afraid of, cemeteries are filled with people that had those same fears. So I'm sure that if they could come back, they'd want to trade in some of that time. I know even just from going through cancer treatment, I mean, all I ever wanted to do was get healthy and go back to normal. But that normal is a town that has burned to the ground once you enter into those experiences. So try and think about it a little bit. You know, another fun exercise is writing your own eulogy now. You know, and especially if you're a young person, imagine your full life. Guidance counselors, have your students, take it with a grain of salt, but have your students write their eulogy. Instead of saying, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, number one, encourage them to be happy. Number two, try the eulogy exercise where you write your own eulogy. You know, what kind of a life did you have? Make it up. See what pops up. But it's a powerful exercise to write your own eulogy, no matter where you are in your life. If you're an older person, it's nice to look back and reflect on it. And maybe enjoy the highlights. I know the Buddhists say live your life well so you can enjoy it twice. For instance, when my father was dying, I sat with him and I took him through his life as much as I knew, and he just got to enjoy it. And I think that's a very powerful practice you can do with yourself, or you can help someone do. But yeah, don't be afraid of thinking about death. It's not the boogeyman. It's not some scary dude with a scythe. It's a natural experience that's going to happen to each and every one of us, save for maybe some billionaires that are going to freeze their heads. But even still, it's going to happen to everybody. So why not think about it a little bit? Think about it in a way that's practical, in a way that makes you feel comfortable, and edge up to it, right? You don't have to just like throw yourself into that thoughts and see your dead body and whatever. You can get as hardcore as you want, but just, you know what? Simple thought. I'm going to die. And people that love me are going to miss me. And life's going to carry on. The same shit's going to happen every day, even though we all are victims of the main character syndrome, but life's going to carry on without you. But it's what you leave behind that matters. I'm not going to get into a whole thing about that. But yeah, love is the greatest investment you can make in yourself and other people, because that's all that gets left behind, except for cash and assets. But really, as a guy who's done funerals for over a decade, it's how you made people feel. That's it. How you make people feel is fucking everything in this world. And it's pretty awesome to see somebody that has lived a powerful life, meaning they loved their people. They loved their people. And to do funerals, especially for people like that, where there's just so much love and they're so missed, but people were so happy that they lived. It's incredible. It's powerful. So think a little bit about death. Realize we all have same-sized graves. Realize grief is the price we pay for love. It's not a bad thing. We're here to live. We're here to love. We're here to just take care of each other. And I think now more than ever, we need that messaging in the world. So that was a bit of a weird one, but I hope you got something out of it. My name's Pete. This is a Celebration Machine. We'll see you next time.